waking up in a bath of ice. I'm a victim of an organ heist. You know it is true, you know this time you're never gonna get it. But you already stole my heart. Yeah, you ripped it and tore it apart.
Welcome to the Cutthroat Queens podcast, where the spirits of Christmas trees go to plot their revenge. My name is Brett Mitchell-Kent, and I am here with the chronically British Elton Skelter and the original mall rat, Chelsea Pumpkins.
Hey.
She looks like
Happy New Year.
Oh, God.
Happy New Year, both of you.
Yeah.
Ellen just told me I look like a mall rat.
Sorry, I got confused with muskrats. I have a big
So I did. So one of the things that I received feedback wise was that they do like to know whether we are all together or separate, and we are together in our hearts, but separate physically. I'm in northern Indiana.
I'm in
Elton
Massachusetts.
Where the witch trials happened. Figures.
Very far away.
I'm in the south of England, not near London. There are other places too.
You're from England.
I'm from England, Poppins.
So since it is our first episode of 2023 and technically our first official episode, writing goals, anything different you want to try in 2023 that you didn't do or failed to do in 2022?
Pumpkin, you go first.
Okay. Well, I've set like a Goodreads reading goal like for the past tons of years. And this year I hit it like by the skin of my teeth. I like finished a novelette on New Year's Eve day. And I was like, yes, that's number 35, which is pretty low for me. So, but I think I spent a lot more time this year writing and beta reading. So like those are things you can't really put on Goodreads. So it's like kind of a silly metric. So I need to decide how many books I want to set on Goodreads. And I don't know, maybe it'll be around like 30 or something, knowing now what I can kind of balance. And writing wise, one of my goals that I met in 2022 was I wanted to submit 100 times. So I hit that. I know to some people that's low, which is crazy to me because I felt like it was kind of hard to meet. But I would like to try writing something longer in this new year. So yeah, I don't know. Novels intimidate me, but I'm thinking maybe like a novella or something. So
even a novella would be cute, wouldn't it? Like it's you can write a really, really decent like 4,000 or 5,000 words short story. If you do a novelette, it's only 3 times the length. So
just 3 of those, crank them out
together. Yeah.
So I think that'll be a good way to like stretch my skills.
I'm very excited for that. I would be happy to beta read for that as well because I love everything that you write.
Thanks, Elton. Elton, what about you? What are you aiming for in the new year?
Okay, well, I've got a book coming out already, so that's one thing off my list. I've got a novel coming out from D&T Press in June, but I've got a couple of other projects that I really want to do. Like I want to do a full collection of short stories of just horrible things, like things that are really triggering, things that people don't necessarily want to or like to read about, things that need content warnings. I want to try and like flex my muscle into extreme horror a little bit, see if I can do it.
Awesome. How many do you already have like banked for it, or are you starting fresh?
I have. How many do I have? I think I've only got one in it so far, but I've got all of them planned. So I've got like outlines for all of them. I'm just gradually working my way through. And I also want to write a sequel to one of my short stories that got published last year. So I'm hoping to do that this year, which should be fun.
Which story?
It is called Fuck You, Mary Sue. It's available through D&T Publishing, part of their Emerge series. We'll link it in the bottom bit. And I want to read more. Obviously, I want to read more as well, and beta read, help my friends out, and I want to just get this off the ground, get this kicking, podcast out there, and start like really hyping up some of the people. We meet a lot of cool writers doing podcasting and being in a larger, wider support group online for writers and stuff, and it just reading some of the work of some of our peers is incredibly impressive. And I'm really excited to see where all of these people go and what they come out with next. So yeah, bring on 2023.
I think it's Brett's goal for us to get a piece of fan art. So if any of you listeners
Yeah.
of episode 1 feel like
Yes.
drawing us,
Yeah.
you would make Brett's ear.
Also, I am a delightfully skinny blonde with massive tits. If anyone's looking to like imagine like what I look like, I'm gorgeous. Pam Anderson, early 90s.
I would love to see that. Anyway, Brett.
From one tit to another.
Once I get
go.
stopped drooling over the 90s Pamela Elton. So mine are probably less trackable, but more emotional, I would say. I am really going to take an active approach to write what I actually want to be writing instead of taking like that mercenary approach to, pick an anthology and write for it. I went away from that in 2022, and I didn't feel like I was loving everything I was putting out. So I'm going to follow my whims. I like to write a lot of long form, and I haven't been because I've been focusing on short stories. So I'm going to bounce between a couple novels. Part of my ADHD makes it so that I kind of get bored a little bit more quickly if I'm doing long form. So I'll get like 20,000 words in, and I'm like, no, I can't do this anymore. So I'm going to bounce between a couple and try that out.
Cool.
Reading wise, I never hit my Goodreads goal because a lot of stuff I read is not trackable on Goodreads. So I'm actually not doing a Goodreads goal this year. That's it.
He reads a lot of porn.
No, actually, that's actually trackable on Goodreads. My husband's cousin I follow her on Goodreads, and I was shocked by the stuff that she was.
I wonder if she's listening.
On Goodreads. I'm like, but I love an erotic story. Don't even get me wrong there, but I don't usually post that on my Goodreads.
Well, maybe you would have hit your goals if you admitted.
I beta read a lot. And then the third one is I actually stole this from another writer, Michelle Tang. Check out her work if you haven't already. Glorious.
Yeah,
author.
she's amazing.
We love Michelle.
But I want to do a writing retreat. Even if it's not an official writing retreat, maybe like snag a room in a cabin and just lock myself away from the world for a week and see what kind of weird things pop out. Yeah. So that's
That'd
happening.
Be awesome. I'm going to my first. Well, I guess that's not really true. I'm going to StokerCon for the first time though, and I'm really excited about that this year. So that'll be another one.
So I'm not certain if I'm going to go to StokerCon in an official way, but I might go to the area that StokerCon is. And linger so that I can meet up with some people that I don't get to meet up with, because I don't really want to go to StokerCon, but I do want to go near StokerCon.
You can come and sell my anthology for me.
Yep.
I'll set you up at a bar and just give you a box of books, and yeah. All right, you're hired.
Yeah, I'm incredibly charming, so they'll just roll off the shelf.
That's a verbal contract right there as well. You've just committed to that on, I was going to say live air. No going back now.
Yeah, we're live. Those are great goals though for both of you. I love it.
Yeah.
I think also, like in terms of coming up for 2023, is there anything that you're like really excited about release wise, movies, games, books, anything that you've got that's coming up that you're like itching to get to?
I guess I'll answer that. So something that I'm reading right now, which is it's not technically released, but it's a good segue. So I'm reading it's a beta read for an author, Emma Murray, who, if you follow anthology, you've probably read her work, but it's called Seafoam Shallows, I think is the working title for it. She is an author she's incredible. I beg her for work consistently, and she'll tell you this, it's very creepy. But She actually has a couple of things. So March of this year, she is coming out in Ooze, who is that one's edited by let me see here. It's
Ruth
I
Anna
don't want to get
Evans.
it wrong. Ruth Ann Evans. It's called
Anna.
Ooze. Ruth Anna Evans. Sorry, Ooze Little Bursts of Body Horror. So both Emma Murray and somebody named Chelsea Pumpkins, who you might have heard of,
Hey, I'm
is
in
coming out
there.
in that one. And then also Obsolescence, which is shortwave Alan I can't say this name,
Lufska?
Lufska and
Hopefully.
are coming out with that one in May 2023. But if you back the Kickstarter, you get it in February, I believe. And Emma Murray is also in that. So shout out to Emma. Her novel's fantastic so far. Hopefully it finds a home very, very shortly so that everybody else can read it as well.
I can't wait for the Obsolescence Kickstarter rewards to come out because I'm obsessed with the art that they had done for their covers. And for those who don't know, I think they had like 3 covers made or whatever. And I was like, well, I don't really need 3 hardcover books or whatever. So I ordered the 3 prints and I'm so excited to get them and hang them up.
Cool.
Yeah,
they
I
look
did. I
awesome.
got the prints and 1 copy.
Nice.
Very cool.
That's cool. Brett, can you, or Elton, because I think you both do this, but can you briefly cover what beta reading involves for people who may not know?
No,
Yeah,
I don't want to.
yeah, so it goes different for whoever you're reading for, but it's basically just taking and throwing an extra pair of eyes onto a finished piece of work, whether it's a flash or a short story or a full-length novel. You can provide line edits. Sometimes you're just reading it looking for inconsistencies. Sometimes you're just reading it so that they can get a confidence boost to actually look and go with the next steps. So it's pretty all-inclusive,
Cool.
wide-ranging what you're gonna do, but you just read it before it hits the main market so that you can help them out. Is that a good?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
I see it as
and
I get to
support.
read a story before everybody else gets to read it. So that's
find-
my benefit to it.
Do you find that you still go back and read pieces after they've been published to see the difference between the original version and the one that got published?
I sometimes reread.
Yeah.
I don't always.
Yeah.
I don't think I have reread yet.
You don't read in the first place, Chelsea. 35 books of 2002.
I will say
Rude.
I
How many
reread.
pieces are still sitting in your to read pile of mine that you've never read before? So many.
Listen, I lost the file. I can't be blamed for that. I'm
That
not
was
sure you
one
ever
of them,
sent
yeah.
it to me.
That was one of them. I sent you several, but never mind. God.
I'm a
Chelsea,
slow reader, okay? I'm a thorough slow reader.
really slow. It takes her like a whole year to read 35 short stories as well.
And
Damn.
editing an entire anthology.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's what we're
So,
here for.
what about you, Chelsea?
What am I
what are
excited
you
about?
Excited about this year?
Yesterday I picked out my first read of 2023. So,
Oh, yeah.
you know, getting an early start on my goal. So I decided to pick up Soft Places, which is by Betty Rocksteady, and it technically came out at the end of last year. It just says 2022 in the copyright. And it came out from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing. But what caught my eye about it, I'll show you guys on the screen, is that it's a hybrid novella and graphic novel. So I just think I'm excited about anybody kind of like trying a new format or like getting a little bit extra creative. And I think that the publishers who are willing to like take a chance on that stuff is really exciting too. So I don't know, I really wanted to support the project, and now I'm like probably 40% through, and it's like super addicting, and I'm very into it and excited to see where it goes.
Addicting? No, that's not good English, Chelsea. It's addictive.
Oh, I am addicted. How about that?
That's better.
So hold on, I do have a question. So
Yeah.
for that, when you said it's a hybrid between a novella and a graphic
Yeah.
novel, how did they do it? Did they
Well,
just
maybe we could have her on someday, but I'll show you. So like the
Betty, if
first,
you're listening, we want you.
let me check. Hold on. I have it in front of me for those who cannot see me at the moment. So like the first like 10-ish pages are prose, and then like we get a full page drawing, another page of prose, and then it like goes into like another maybe dozen pages of graphic novel. So like I have a feeling based on how the story is going that, I don't know, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but there are maybe like two worlds happening, and like maybe the real world is the prose side and the other world I think is the graphic novel side.
Sold, absolutely sold. I'm going to go and buy a copy now.
That's actually, yeah. If my phone was
really
within reach of me right now, I'd be ordering it already.
I think that the art would be up both of your alleys as well.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the stuff that that Betty does for PMP, and it's incredible. I love her work. She's fantastic.
That's really
so I don't know. I might finish this today, depending on how.
Not during the recording, please. We're very
bye. Elton, what are you excited about?
Okay, I've got two things. One of them, I don't know if anyone's familiar with this, but in 2022, oh my god, that's such a weird way to say that. In 2022,
2022.
Absolutely, Mae Murray edited the book of Queer Saints. She has just started up her own like small media source page called Exo Media, and announced that there will be a second book of Queer Saints, volume 2 submissions, which open up in May. So I'm assuming we're going to get that before the end of next year. So I think that's going to be really, really good. There was a lot of buzz about the first one. I've read some of the stories in it as well. They're just a collection of some really fantastic queer authors, and I love works that bring together the queer community and put together collections of stories where they feature problematic gays, which is exactly what this collection was. And the fact that there's going to be a second one is very, very exciting. So yes, very excited about that.
Awesome. I know with the first one, May did some really nice like altruistic work with that too. Like I think I got the copy because I made a donation.
Yeah.
And just showed her proof of that, and she sent me the ebook.
I think the second one's going to be a lot, because I think it was very much an experimentation for her. It was her first experience editing. It was her first experience doing something like a Kickstarter, and now she's got a lot of sort of practice with that process to bring it back and make it hopefully a lot more sort of streamlined and easier for herself when she's putting it out, and she's doing it under a new sort of bracket called Exo Media. So that's really exciting as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think that media bracket as well is going to be offering sort of consultancy and stuff like that as well. So I think that's going to be sort of a
that's
resource
really cool
for the community, which is great. The other thing I'm really excited about is the Mothers of Mayhem podcast are releasing a season 2 charity anthology. It's called Nursery Stories for Dumb Crotch Goblins, A Child's Garden of Curses. So it's a child-themed charity anthology, and all of the money is going to Donate Life in honor of Jay Wilburn, who we lost in 2022. So none of the authors will be getting any payments for it, but it will be like a charity thing, and that'll be running through Gloomhouse Publishing as well. So I'm very excited about that, because that's such a good theme. I'm really looking forward to seeing the kind of fucked up kid stories that people come up with.
That title is like so up your alley.
I know, and I'm obsessed.
I don't know if either of you did, but I actually did. I dropped a story over to them. I mean, they haven't made their final list that I know of.
It closed yesterday, I think.
Yeah, so hopefully, because that's a great cause. I would love to be involved in it. And also, have you seen the covers that publisher? Oh, I'm
gonna have to Google them.
Gorgeous.
Oh, I do love a good cover, but also I think the only thing that really drew me to it, first of all, aside from it being a charity anthology, is the fact that it's with Gloomhouse Publishing. It's Christina and Marion from the Mothers of Mayhem podcast, and they are just two of the most ridiculously hilarious, charming, dedicated community members. They love all things horror and extreme horror. They're so supportive of the community as well. So big shout out to them, and to anyone who's looking to buy an anthology. When it comes out, we'll update more when we've got a release date for it, because I think that's going to be a really, really good one to get hold of. So yeah, that's
awesome.
My excited for 2023. Oh, also Teen Wolf movie comes out in 3 weeks. I can't stop. I just love it. I want it. And I feel less guilty about it now because all of the teenage boys will have grown up, so I can lust after them and not feel creepy, which is good.
Oh my God.
Oh, you'll watch it. You'll watch it just for the shirtlessness.
I think, if we ever start a Patreon, we'll have to do like an Elton live watch of Teen Wolf.
Do
And you
an
can do that
Elton live
alone.
watch of, Elton live
There's
watch
a
of that guy's
YouTuber that I watch
OnlyFans.
occasionally that does these super intricate, like Pretty Little Liars and Glee, where he just like does these intricate webs of how everything is connected, and they take like 2 hours, and he really leans into them.
I love that. I do.
So since we've been talking about the future, and because it fits with the themology, whatever the word is, don't hate me for it, Elton. I make up my own words. I'm American.
It's okay, I'll let you get away with it.
I want to delve into the past. Delve, is that correct? I want to go backwards.
Yeah. We're time traveling, baby.
We are all, at least minor fans of the horror genre, and we're all also similar in age. So let's talk about the 90s.
Oh,
What
Let's go back.
was, the catalyst of the 90s, something that hit you in the 90s that really pushed you forward in this genre, maybe even inspired you to be a writer, however you wanted to answer it.
Oh my God, I've got a good one for this. I really do.
go.
Okay.
So the year is 1993, and I am obsessed with Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is my gateway into horror movie. I don't care what you say. It is a creature feature through and through. That movie was horrifying but beautiful. It got me really interested in dinosaurs, and I thought for a while that I was Laura Dern. So I used to save my pocket money up, and I went to see that film 9 times in the theaters.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Little 8-year-old me. But the thing is, I would go dressed as Laura Dern. So I'd be wearing little khaki shorts and a little orange shirt with a neck scarf and some walking boots and a little hat. And I would think that I was a paleontologist. And
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then after my obsession with that grew a little bit, I started trying to write my own fanfic version of Jurassic Park. It's called Lost Existence. I submitted it as an English coursework piece when I was at school. It was just basically the exact same theme as Jurassic Park, but some other people found dinosaurs on an island. So yeah, Jurassic Park, absolutely.
Please tell me that your fan fiction still exists and that there are pictures of you wearing this outfit.
No, and no. I was a second child, so we didn't take pictures of me back then. Plus, also, it was all like actual cameras that you had to get developed, send away in little envelopes to get developed.
That's the way they were when I was a kid too.
Yeah, same.
I'm kind of glad
it's
we
adorable
missed
that
the
you
whole
said that
instant
because
camera thing.
my story is so similar.
Oh my God. I want to put this fanfic on our social media.
But mine was Blade.
Oh.
My best friend growing up's name was Sergey, and we used to film. I'm doing air quotes because we didn't have a camera, but we used to film ourselves in the Blade trilogy, doing them like we would be electrocuted in his tiny little living room fighting vampires. That was
an actual
really
blood sprinkler scene.
it was very weird. And he's an immigrant family, so his parents are Russian, and they just thought we were the weirdest kids in the world. They would pop in and we're like vibrating on a chair pretending we're being electrocuted, and they would just kind of like shake their heads and walk away.
I'm guessing you got into a lot of trouble when you started using some of the lines from it as well, like, "Hey mom, you cock juggling thunder cunt."
So we did that, and then we also played a game. It was a zombie hunting game called Fear the Reckoning, and we had to fight zombies in that and vampires.
Was
that was mine.
Or a computer game?
What kind of game?
Was that a board game or a computer game?
Oh, sorry. It was I think like a PlayStation game, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
It was that we had to play. I remember I played as the martyr character. She was a young Asian schoolgirl type. I always chose the girl characters. So
yeah, I think if there was ever 3 people to exist that were always Chun-Li playing Street Fighter, it's us, to be fair.
yeah. So that's mine. That's Chelsea. Please tell me you have a similar story to where you used to cosplay or.
I should have gone first because mine's like the least interesting. But I was just gonna say like I don't know, maybe like the earliest memory of like getting into horror would probably be like watching Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I love that.
That show, like there are still episodes of that, and I couldn't even tell you like the names of them or when I watched them, but that
They
like are
don't
still
make
stuck in
TV
my
like
head.
that anymore, do they? That's
No,
like even
it's
like
so good.
the fact that they've done the Fear Street movies on Netflix now, it's like more for an adult audience. The kids horror TV show of the 90s were perfect. All of them. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Do
And
you
they
guys
were
remember,
like legit scary.
do you guys remember Erie, Indiana?
Yes.
Remember that TV program? I loved that show. Very gay undertones. There was something going on between Max and that blonde head kid. And that he wasn't called Max. He was called that in Hocus Pocus. What was he called? I can't remember. But yeah, that TV show was amazing. I used to love all stuff that was kind of a little bit eerie, a little bit X-Files-y, but for kids when we were
And-
young.
Yeah.
Such a good
And
selection.
when you were watching that as a tiny baby Elton, did you think in your wildest dreams, one day I'm going to be hosting a podcast with a truck driving looking motherfucker from Indiana?
Yes, I did. I actually knew.
That's all you thought about.
That's what it took a while to get here. I had to eat a lot of pizzas. I had to, try to go to university twice, live with my parents multiple times, but I got here, and now I've arrived. So
Yep.
Now
now
you're
I can
here.
talk about
We're doing
Omri
it.
Katz starring in Erie, Indiana for those 13 episodes, which I'm pretty sure are all on YouTube now. If you haven't watched
Oh
it,
my God.
please do.
And So
I'm gonna have
Weird
to.
was the other one. Erie, Indiana, and So Weird were kind of out
Yeah.
at the same time. Was it Mackenzie Phillips? That was in
I
that.
don't know the show at all. I'm gonna have to Google it.
It's got Max from Hocus Pocus, the star in it.
Oh,
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Teen Crush.
Marshall Teller is his name, I think.
Marshall Teller. Yeah.
So,
and then there's the guy with the
his
white
actual
hair.
name is Max from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about.
No, that's his real name, Max from Hocus Pocus.
Max from
Oh,
Hocus
right.
Pocus is called
My-
Max from
my
Hocus Pocus
bad.
in real life. Yeah.
So Chelsea,
Yes.
I might have played a little trick. So we're talking about the 90s, and a little bird told me that you have a fun new anthology releasing. That's what I call horror, with a 90s theme.
I do. Wow, it's so weird. What a coincidence that
Yes.
we were just talking about the 90s.
Oh my god.
So
You played such a good trick, Brett.
who saw it coming? So what? Give us a small summary. What is That's what I call horror.
At least do it
About.
properly. It's That's what I call
Thank
horror.
you. No one gives it enough oomph. So
That
thank
was
you,
really
Alan.
embarrassing. I'm gonna have to cut that out.
No, you're not allowed.
I say it as like a slight gasp, like
It's just like a really weak orgasm.
And some people say ah, and I'm like, no, it's ah. Ah, that's what I call horror is an anthology of 90s horror. And this book has 14 short stories, all in the horror weird genre, from a variety of different authors. And every story is inspired by, takes place in, or based on the 90s as an era. So we, as a group, just tapped into the weirdness of that time, and we all kind of were inspired in different ways. And
are we talking? We're talking the 1590s, right?
yeah, the 1590s.
When
so
Chelsea was born.
it's written in really, really old English.
She's the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn because they were just
Ugh,
a bit damp. So they just wouldn't set on fire.
just damp witches. No, it's 1990s, correct. So
Those
like we were just
damp
talking
witches.
about. So
Okay,
yeah, think
and
like
when did it come out?
neon, think like neon, flannel, grunge, Trapper Keepers, Lisa Frank, like all that wrapped into an anthology with scary shit.
That is all I ever think about is those things.
I don't
Right
actually
there.
know what Lisa Frank is. Is that an American thing?
You
I've
don't
been
know
reading,
who
I've been
Lisa
reading the
Frank
stories, but
is?
and everyone references Lisa Frank, but I don't know what it is.
I want to screen share. Hang on. Okay, Lisa Frank First of all, you're not the first person to ask me this. One time my hairdresser asked me and we had a whole discussion about Lisa Frank.
That's insane.
She's like an artist.
Uh-huh.
She has a whole line of products that were super popular when Brett and I were young children. It's very rainbow, bright, animal print, stars, hearts.
Like there's a lot of like dolphins and little baby like cheetahs that are like neon pigmented. It's
Elton,
it's actually my
give me
dream
screen share.
to own a van that I've converted into the Lisa Frank mobile that's completely decked out in all Lisa Frank inside and out. And then I'm just going to abandon my family and live in the Lisa Frank mobile. But my husband doesn't want to spend the money on it if I'm going to abandon the family for it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Can you see this, Elton?
Yeah, this is gross.
Beautiful.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so like every little girl's like lunchbox, backpack.
Every little girl.
Every little
And
girl
little
and gay
boys.
boy.
Thank you.
Every little girl and gay boy. Like 2-pocket folders were really big back then. Trapper keepers, like anything that could be
I
an
love me a
accessory,
trapper keeper. I have to
right?
get on Google and buy myself a Lisa Frank trapper keeper just to feel extra special.
You can probably like get a vintage one on eBay for like $1,000. Anyway, like
With my spare
stickers
$1,000.
galore. Like Lisa Frank was everything.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
They make Lisa Frank Crocs presently.
Oh,
I've been trying
I
to score
almost
a pair,
bought them.
but
Why
whenever
are
I
they-
try to get them, they're always sold out.
Okay, you are aware you're millennials, right? You're not supposed to be wearing Crocs.
No, they're
Stop
back.
it. No, they're not back.
Yeah, they are.
They never started. There is something to be embarrassed about. Stop.
I care very little what I'm supposed to be doing.
Have you got those? Have you got those little attachable testicles that you can get for the Crocs?
They're called gibbets, and yes,
You've got Croc balls, have you?
I do. Why didn't I buy these gibbets? I should. Maybe I'll do it today.
Okay, get off Amazon and start telling us about your book again.
What was your question?
When does the book release and in what formats?
It is due to come out January
Take your
25th.
time. If you need to shop for Croc accessories, do that. We're
Yeah,
here.
we need a quick break for me to order these. The book comes out January 25th. And that should be, if everything goes well, which this is my first time editing an anthology and supply chain and whatnot. So like knock on wood, January 25th. And it should be out both in paperback and ebook formats. We are recording this in early January, but this will probably come out close to the release date. But there are a couple of pre-orders open right now too, but everybody should be able to get it.
We will link it in the description underneath, so you can get your copy. Whereabouts are you selling it? Is it just Amazon exclusively, or have you got other platforms that you're selling it on?
Nope. So it should be available kind of wherever you can buy books. So you will be able to get on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books. It'll be in the Ingram system, which probably, if you purchase books, you probably aren't aware of this system because it's all behind the scenes. But what it means is that it'll be easy for like libraries to find it. So please request it from your library. That would be amazing. As well as like indie booksellers. So it'll be in the system where bookstores can order it to sell it. It'll be on like bookshop.org and stuff too.
I can't wait to see a wild copy of That's What I Call 19.
Oh my God, that would make my life.
If anybody spots one out in the wild, you have to take a picture and send it in to us on our Twitter, which is at Cutthroat Horror. So yeah, please
do that. And then I'm currently working on getting the ebook sold at godless.com too. So they sell indie horror ebooks, so you can kind of skip Amazon. So
yeah, they're a digital only platform as well, so they don't do any paperbacks or anything. They are exclusively digital, which is
but it's hard. It's hard to get your books into like non-big box. I don't know. I know Amazon's kind of the enemy, but it's tough. It's tough to like get noticed, especially if you don't have a big name that you're writing on without it. So it was important to me to at least try to get it into some like not evil areas as
and,
well.
and international postage rates as well. If you were selling it from a specific store in America, would be really difficult in terms of like if someone in Australia or somebody in sort of the eastern countries wanted to buy it, that the expense would be just astronomical. So Amazon does have its purpose, but if you can buy it from an indie publisher or an alternative thing, we do ask that you do that, because authors make authors and publishers make a lot more money from indie sources than they do from Amazon.
And one thing, this is for you, Chelsea, and then also, otherwise, a couple of anthos that I've been in, they were indie, and a tack that they took is they sent out a form and asked for everybody that's in the anthology to just give a couple of local bookstores that they're in.
That's really cool.
And
that's a great idea,
sometimes they'll just get the books, and sometimes they'll offer up a consignment. So you can buy the copies of the books and give them, and then they'll sell them for you there. So that's an option. Indie booksellers, self-pubbed authors, anthologists, whatever.
Up and coming publishing houses. Yeah.
Some bookstores will do that, especially the smaller mom pop indie ones.
That's cool.
They are our bread and butter as well. We need those places. So if we can support them, we try to as much as possible. I don't think Jeff Bezos really needs any more of our money, and I think his staff need a break. So if you can get them from a bricks and mortar indie bookshop down the road from where you live, and then go for it. Go do it.
Yeah, there's lots of options. Yeah.
How did you end up editing this little beauty?
Yeah, why you? Is it because of the Lisa Frank? Is it just because of that obsession?
Yeah, I had the Lisa Frank clout, so they picked me. So it's an interesting project. So this whole anthology started with a writing group that I'm a part of, which is some friends, acquaintances, just like horror writers gathered on the internet. We were like, hey, let's write an anthology together. We'll just like pick a theme and we'll all write a story and make it a book and we'll put it out. So that went well. There ended up being 14 of us. There were a couple more in and out. Life happens. People, get distracted or stuff comes up and they have to drop out. But as a group, we picked a theme and we picked the 90s horror. And then we all kind of went off and did some drafting, and then we like exchanged and did like critiques of each other and did a couple of rounds of that. So we got a lot of like beta reading, like Brett was talking about earlier, and feedback and, edits and that kind of stuff. And once all the stories were complete, I think there's a realization of like, oh, this is going to be tough to do with 14 people voting unanimously on everything we want to do. And I think I had kind of taken over like a little bit of the organizational role throughout like the process of drafting and sharing.
I'm surprised by that.
I can't help it.
She's just so organized. She loves a spreadsheet.
So the funnest bit is that I feel like we wouldn't even manage to get online without Chelsea because she keeps Elton and I completely wrangled.
We were going to do the whole thing through semaphore and like carrier pigeons, but she was like, no, we can use Zoom. You've heard of Zoom, right? Thanks, Chelsea.
So they make me do all the logistics. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so this group nominated me to be the editor, and I was like, hell yeah, I'll give it a shot. So I've learned a lot. I definitely could not have done it if I wasn't surrounded by people who have like sort of dabbled both in like self-publishing and trad publishing, traditional publishing, who kind of already had some wisdom and were like happy to share it. So total noob and just getting through it.
It looks great though. It is a gorgeous book.
Thanks.
Yes,
I'm excited to like
copies. We are very lucky.
These two have arcs, and I pulled out a few more tricks from my sleeve to put in the final. So hopefully that'll keep people coming back and checking out the final version.
Yeah, but like aesthetically, even the cover itself it's a reflection of those CD compilations from the 90s. Now that's what I call music ones. They're just done in beautiful neon hand drawn. And I believe the author for that, the artist that you picked, who was that?
That's Cassie Daly. She's amazing. So back even before I was the official editor, We had like, as a group talked about like potential cover artists and that sort of stuff. And, we didn't have a huge budget. So we like had that in mind. But I was like, kind of from the start, I'm like, I don't care how much it costs. I want Cassie to do this. Like, this is like her vibe 100%, like rainbow horror, like plus like really great illustrating skills. Like I was like, I want her. And luckily, like, I mean, not luckily, like she earns it. She's a wonderful person, but everybody in the anthology is like, hell yeah, let's go for that. Like she's just a perfect fit. And working with her was like an absolute dream, like just exchange information. I sent her like some summaries of the stories and we like chatted back and forth about, she asked like really great questions, like what kind of vibe are you going for? Like what kind of color scheme, and just like super thorough. And then when we saw the like proof or the, I don't know, draft come back from Cassie, it was like spot on. I don't know. You both have seen it. I think it's amazing. She's an indie author
as well, isn't she? As well as an artist. So she's one of us. So
yes,
we love
yes.
It's insanely gorgeous. Does she have a website or an Instagram or a link or something?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have that in there.
What about the internal artwork, Chelsea? Was that all Cassie as well?
No, Cassie did not do any of the internal illustrations. Those were done by two people in the project. So one of them is PL McMillan, and she has a story in the anthology as well. And she has done interior illustrations for like a bunch of collections and anthologies. I believe she's open for commissions. She does great work. I'm wearing a sweatshirt with one of her illustrations on it now.
She's also smiling as if you can see her, not realizing this is an audio podcast and we're not.
I can't help it. Even like when I ask, this is tangent, but when someone's like, "Can you take a picture of us?" Like I smile even though I'm taking the picture. Yeah. So PL did half of the illustrations, and the other half were done by Jenny Kiefer. She doesn't have a story in this anthology, but she's just kind of part of the writing community that we are a part of. She has other work out, and you may recognize her name because she is a co-owner of a brand new indie bookstore in Louisville, I believe, called Butcher Cabin Books. It's called Butcher Cabin Books. Yeah. So she did
picturing
have
the red on the outside, like the red blood dripping
I know.
Down. I was just like, oh, what's it called though? I can picture it so clearly in my head.
Yeah, and I think their social media account is Horror Bookstore. So I was like, I know that's not what it's called, but anyway. So those were 3 artists. It was really nice having PL involved in the process because she kind of was like our art liaison. And I don't dabble in illustrations at all, but obviously she does. So she kind of like did a lot of the like discussions with Cassie, and I don't know. I think like talking artist to artist is probably pretty helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like when they ask for feedback, I'm like, what kind of feedback can we give? Is it rude? Like
writing feedback versus artistic feedback is very different.
Yeah, because her vision was perfect. So anyway, and so MPL also organized like between her and Jenny, like who was taking which illustration. So she was a great little organizer of the art.
So who was it that actually formatted the end manuscript? Did you have to do that, or did you get some outside help with it?
I've worked with Carson Winter, who is also one of the authors in the anthology. So he has some experience. He did, what's it called? He has a collection of novelettes with a couple other authors. So he had done some formatting work.
Bloodlines.
Bloodlines. Yeah.
Bloodlines. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that collection's fantastic. So I did like kind of like outlined the vision of things, but he kind of knows like how it all works in the software. I believe we used Vellum, if that is interesting to anybody.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
I don't understand the question, nor do I care to answer it.
It's just the background software. So, but I learned a lot about like how particular you need to be and like alignments and running headers and, shit that you always take for granted when you're reading a book. But so Carson was a huge help there.
Good old Carson. He's got a release coming up in March, I think, doesn't he? He's got a book coming out from Tenebris Press in March. We will link that below because we love Carson.
Yeah, that's called Soft Targets. And yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah.
So
I read it.
Carry on.
I can't remember the name of it. He had a novella. It's still out. I can't remember the name of it. It's about.
Are you talking about Reunion Special?
Reunion. Thank you. That was a great one. It's got a beautiful, like, bright yellow cover. I wish that it was longer. I wasn't done with it by the time that it ended. But so check that one out as well if you get the chance. Carson Winter Reunion Special.
Yeah,
we'll,
he's a great
be tweeting
writer.
all about all of these, and we'll make sure we include them in the description notes as well, so you can link straight across to good places to buy all of these authors that we love and we're trying to hype. So
yeah. And Carson's his story in that's what I call horror, which I kind of dub Twitch, because that's what if you take the first letters. So, his story, he wrote it as like a screenplay, so it was like really unique. And he kind of played off the like 90s sitcom, like Boy Meets World-y laugh track kind of situation.
It was a really, really cool, different story, that one. It's I just
so you mentioned that you learned a lot with working with Carson on like that formatting, and that it was surprising to you, the type of work. What was the biggest surprise for you in your first foray into the editing side of things?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, like I said, I went in knowing nothing, and there are a lot of, there are a lot of parts. There's formatting, and then there's the whole publishing side, and then like, especially as like a small operation, like marketing is like, it's kind of a grind, and that stuff I really enjoyed. So I would not call that the biggest obstacle to me, but some people do not like talking about themselves all the time. Some people don't like the grind on social media and like tagging. I guess I'll just call it tagging and nagging people. And I even warned like my IRL friends. I was like, my social media is going to be really annoying, so I'm sorry. Please don't unfollow me. Just mute me if you're not interested in reading. But yeah, the marketing is a lot of work. But I think to me, and this wouldn't be necessarily the biggest obstacle for somebody else, but my name isn't really out there yet. So contacting people for like blurbs and stuff, I felt like I didn't really have a good foot in the door with a lot of people. Luckily, indie horror is relatively welcoming. And so we were able to get a few. But I think it's just like, hey, you've never heard of me, you want to read this book, and then put your name on it too. Like, it's a kind of a big ask.
Yeah.
And they're probably like, all right, loser, like, let me see your 90s stories. Okay. But luckily, hopefully this will, just make it easier in the future. So,
and in terms of
if you were going to
marketing, sorry, can I just ask as well, in terms of the marketing as well, have you taken on the brunt of the marketing for it, or is it more of a collective in terms of the people who are participating in the authorship as well?
I definitely took on the biggest role, and I made like a press kit for all the authors. So I'm like, here are some things you can say, here are the right links, like here are some images you can use. In addition to commissioning Cassie to do the art, to do the cover art, I also commissioned her to make us a bunch of social media promo cards. And I know that that's something she's planning to offer in the new year. So if you as an author are interested in like a package like that, Cassie's open for commissions. So anyway, I put that all in one place for everybody to use. But I definitely took on a brunt of like, tweeting, Instagramming. I'm the one who reached out to a lot of the like ARC reviewers. I will say another of the authors in the anthology, Caleb Stevens, he recently went through all of this with his own collection, which was fantastic. So he gave me a ton of advice, and he was a real help getting off the ground in some ways. One of the biggest things I'm glad he pushed on me was using book sirens. So you all may be familiar with like ARCs and getting advanced reader copies, and there's some websites that facilitate that. So a lot of people sign up for like NetGalley, for instance. Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest one. The downside to NetGalley is I don't participate in it because I'm a slow reader. So, but I think that like there might not be much like curation and like book content to reader, and I might be wrong about that, but I think maybe the pool is a lot bigger. But with Book Sirens, we basically you pay like per copy you hand out, so it does take a little bit of an investment, but I have found that the matches are really well, and so like the people picking up this book like horror, for instance, and like an anthology, so like you're not getting people who are like, I love romance and I picked up this book 1 star, I hated it. It's like, yeah, well, you weren't really the target audience.
This wasn't for you, Karen.
So Book Sirens has been a really great tool. We've had pretty good interest from that. So that would be a tip I would recommend to somebody.
Cool. Book Sirens. We'll link them. We'll link everything.
Yeah. And they have a social media presence, and they have like promoted our book a couple times on that, which has been really cool.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that was a tip, is there any other advice you can think of as a first-time editor to another first-time editor, anthologist?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. I've had like numerous like Zoom calls with people being like, tell me everything about publishing. What do I need to know? Like, how do I make, like, you kind of have to form your own schedule and deadlines. So like getting all the information up front really helps you kind of put that into perspective. And then on the creative side, like maybe trust your gut a little bit. I know like one of the most fun parts for me, but also took a really long time, was coming up with the order of stories. And a couple times I like tried to run it by somebody else who had read a lot of them, and they would have like opposite opinions. And I was like, God damn it. But it makes you second guess yourself. And in the end, I just went with what I thought. And so far I've gotten pretty good feedback about how it came out. But, I think in some cases you're the editor, you're in charge, you need to make a final decision. And sometimes deciding things is really hard for people. So trust yourself.
You love a micromanage moment, so you were perfect for it.
Maybe I'm a little bit of a micromanager. I'm just a project manager.
She hits us when no one's looking.
Honest. I feel like I delegated roles appropriately, and everything got done.
I feel like you are an asset to every situation. I do. It's like you manage things very well.
Yeah, absolutely
understand how to organize work in a digestible way. It's weird and not relevant to the podcast, but I'm not surprised that you were the editor, and I will not be surprised when this book takes off because of all the hard work you put into it.
Yeah, I smell Stoker buzz for this one. I think it should very much make it to their readers list. I want it to. It's such a good book.
Yeah. Oh, that's so kind. Thank you.
And since you themed it after the Now That's What I Call Music line.
All right, don't get me sued.
Oh, sorry. Since you didn't do that, and it has no relevance at all to that.
Total coincidence.
Is there an That's What We Call Horror number 2 on the horizon?
There is not a formal plan for one. What's kind of fun is that a few readers, perhaps one on this call, even Brett, have expressed interest in being like, oh my God, I totally have a 90s idea. And so like in the back of my head, I'm like, you could probably put a whole nother anthology of these together, but we'll see how reception of this goes. Like so far advanced reception's pretty good, but the pool is small.
I would encourage everyone to write a story about a little boy dressed as Laura Dern spending his pocket money watching Jurassic Park.
That would be such a good story. Yeah, so no formal plans, but like the door is definitely not closed. Since this started as a group project, there was not like a submission call, and that might be something I would be interested in. So that was a huge like something off my list, like off the table or off my shoulders, I should say. Like I didn't read slush for this. Like we just we had our pool from the start.
All right, so we are going to take a quick break here. Elton, I know you've got other stuff to do, so I know you're not going to be back to join us for this second bit, but coming up here after this little break, we are going to have Edith Lockwood and CB Jones sitting with Chelsea Pumpkins from their relative spaces on the planet, and we will get to discuss with them their contributions to the 90s anthology that we were discussing. That's what I call horror. Chelsea, do you want to do the scream?
Ah!
That's what I call horror. So we are back, and like I said previously, we have CB Jones and Edith Lockwood here. Would you guys, or both of you, just real quick, let us know, like, what are your preferred pronouns?
He, him.
Okay.
And she, her.
She, her. All right, perfect. So CB, what was the story called that you contributed to? That's what we call horror.
It
know
was
the title?
called, yeah, it was called The One with the Mysterious Package, which is a take on the Friends episodes, like their naming convention of the Friends episodes. I thought one of us in the collection should use that, and no one did it, so I stepped in.
Perfect.
That's a missed opportunity. You should have just done the whole thing with the Friends episode callback. And Edith?
Known as first and last album drop.
Okay, so one thing we want to do here is just a quick icebreaker, just to get yourself, used to chatting with us on this. So the question for all three of you is going to be, so name one thing that you miss about the 1990s and one thing that you'd never want to see return. Chelsea, do you want to start us off with the answer?
Oh, okay. I was like, I gotta think about this.
Sorry.
I'm gonna do a weird thing, and I'm gonna pick the same thing for both, and it's like the inability to. Okay, so in the 90s, you couldn't record your shows on a DVR, and you couldn't really watch on demand, and there was no streaming. So like when a show was on, the whole world was watching it, which was really cool, and it like created this excitement around it. Everyone would like huddle up around the family TV, and like as soon as the commercial hit, you'd like sprint to the bathroom or like get whatever you needed and make it back in time. So on one hand, I think that feeling was really of its time, and like I feel nostalgic about it. But on the other hand, I do like the accessibility of being able to watch anything on my time and binge it. So I have the same answer for both. I'm already breaking the rules. You should have had me go last.
Can we comment on those? Or
Sure.
like the answers? Yeah. I think like the last one that was like that, which would probably be maybe the last one that will ever be like that was Game of Thrones. As far as like the hype, everyone would watch it on Sunday night. And even then it was less than like something like Lost,
Yeah.
finales, or Seinfeld.
That's a good
season
point.
finale.
I think like the difference now is like, even though you can watch it whenever, it's like because of social media, now you're exposed to spoilers. So it is like, it's interesting how it's come back around a little bit.
You have to watch it instantly. I don't know much about sports, but I mean, sports, I think might get enjoyed simultaneously if I'm understanding it correctly. Like
Don't break my answer.
You're
ruining the magic of the 90s.
Okay, sorry. Did you also have an answer for that, CB? What was the thing you missed most?
Yeah, I got this question in advance. I had a list, but I'll stick it to keep it to one.
That's a secret.
Yeah. I was going back and forth. I really miss, this kind of goes into Chelsea's. I miss video stores. The accessibility thing, you can find just about anything, but there is stuff like that falls off that you can't find at times that just gets removed from streaming. But just video stores, like the going, with your friends, like towards the end of the night, or that was part of the event, going and browsing and trying to find the movie. If they didn't have it, then you had to like regroup, and that was just part of the socialization activity in and of itself, stopping at the video store.
Yeah. I had a friend
I
that was a
still drive-
Blockbuster Gold member, and
Whoa.
we used to walk to Blockbuster and get all these movies, and it was a whole event.
Our Blockbuster, like in the town I grew up with, the Blockbuster building is still there. And like whenever I drive home to visit my family, I like get a little wave. I'm like, oh, Blockbuster.
Yeah, it's a
I think it's
liquor
a
store
bank now,
now.
so it's like boring. Yeah. All right. So what's one thing you'd leave behind? Sorry, I'm not supposed to be interviewing.
Oh
I can
yeah.
do it.
It's like, I think everybody has one of those fashion things that just really gets under their skin. Like I have a friend that's like irrationally hates Crocs, like shoes. But so this might like piss some people off, but Jinkos, I was never a fan of Jinkos.
I
I don't know, are they coming
100%
back?
back you.
Oh, thank you. I
Hated
was never a Jinko
Jinkos.
kid. Yeah. And then
All right, we're anti-Jenko on this podcast.
Apparently.
We did talk about Crocs earlier in this episode, though, so
Yeah,
it's very
that's
strange
yeah,
that you brought it
random.
back.
ties in.
We talked about Lisa Frank Crocs, so it's a whole different beast, but Lisa Frank is very important. How about you, Edith? What was your favorite thing about the 90s and something that you might leave behind?
I think one of my favorite things was like the mall was still like a cool place to go. I mean, I don't know what the kids these days do, but like that was it. Like you would go to the mall and you would go to like Sbarro's or whatever, and go to the Sam Goodies, like your CDs, you check the bookstore, like to see if the next book in your series was out. Like it was just like a magical, exciting place. And I really miss that.
The food court was like everything back then.
Yes.
And like all the mall employees knew each other. Like it was a whole like dichotomy to being a mall employee. So I could
Did
feel that.
anybody here work at the mall?
Nope.
Yeah, I never did.
I
We
never
didn't
did.
have a mall in my town. Like, we had to drive like 30 or 45 minutes, but it was always a special trip. So
Special occasion.
yep.
Yeah. So what would you leave behind, Edith?
I would leave behind the lack of TV. I grew up like in the country, so we had like 6 channels, and that was it. So I don't miss that.
But that might have, pushed you towards books, potentially.
Yeah.
You could say it
And
did.
I would reread the same books like until they fell apart because
Oh no.
there was only 6 television channels. So yeah.
Oh, very cool. So were any of those like the well-known ones at least? Did you have like CBS? Did you get Arthur or Free Disney or anything? Or were you watching Ag Day?
Definitely PBS, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I remember, and that's all I can remember off.
That's the only one that matters.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
So obviously the icebreaker was the 90s because the theme of the all of the awesome stories that you guys put into that's what I call
Say it with
horror.
feeling.
Sorry, I can't do the scream. I don't have it. So I know that this was a little bit different as far as anthologies go, because you didn't like respond to a sub, whatever. You kind of got together, put this idea together and made it happen together. So how did you individually approach the 90s theme for it? Like, did you let the era inspire you, or did you have an existing seed of an idea that you kind of shoved into the time zone? I guess the CD, if you wanted to start.
I don't know. I've kind of like written a bunch of teen or child protagonists and short stories and stuff, and I kind of go back to what I'm familiar with, which is 90s or early 2000s. So I've had other stories that were 90s set that I thought, well, about recycling, and then I wanted to try something new. And so you were asking how we were inspired by it?
Yeah. Did you like just think of 90s and see what came to you about 90s, or
That you,
did
like,
you have an
shoehorned
idea
in.
already that you
Yeah, no,
fit?
it just kind of came with the call. And I don't know. I just how do we get any of our ideas? I mean, I thought about this really slight spoiler on my story. What would happen if you had a cell phone in the 90s that was with somehow magically had the infrastructure in place that had all the bells and whistles that we have on our cell phones now, like GPS and all that stuff. And then how would that change your experience and like what we take for granted now? So that's kind of the approach I took.
Yeah. Yeah, and yours kind of had like a slight feel to the like the lake house kind of dynamic, and like
don't
is
think
that a 90s
so.
movie?
Is it?
Is that the rom-com?
Is that the one with
Yeah.
like Sandra Bullock?
Keanu?
Yeah, where they
Is it?
Yeah, it's totally 90s.
Sandra,
Yeah.
they
Oh,
they
it's not
speak through a
Sandra Bullock.
mailbox.
Is it? It is. Okay. No,
Yeah.
that was 2006. So.
Oh.
So now you're canceled. You lost your 90s
So
card.
we're gonna pretend I didn't say that.
Yes, exactly.
Voted off the podcast.
It feels very 90s though. So it's a good thing you didn't drop that as your inspiration. Because how about you, Edith? Did you have something like immediately did 90s hit you, or did you pop yours into there?
Yeah, I would say like I was a younger kid like through the 90s. So like the older like teenage kids like were like is like the epitome of cool. Like that was it. Like so that's what I wanted to write here was like this teenage girl who's, you know, in the goth scene or like the rocker scene, and you know, she's so cool because like my inner child just like desperately wanted to be that, even though I was like, you know, like 6 or 7. I was just like, oh, that's so in that way, like I kind of got to live that out in this story and be one of the cool kids, even though Edith or the Nona is actually quite young in the story. Like she's really a kid, but yes, but it was a lot of fun for me to like pretend like I was one of those kids in that era, you know, even though I was, you know, watching like Rugrats and stuff.
Same.
To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would still probably watch Rugrats and
I think
stuff.
Rugrats was like pretty progressive for
really
its time,
what
though,
to
I will
say.
say.
Yeah. It was definitely gentle parenting. So but I mean it sounds like it was pretty cathartic for your, you know, inner child to get to
Absolutely
and do their
like,
thing so that you didn't get to do
I think
before.
like both of the teens in your story
I had
like just were so great and so of the time too. They were spot on 90s. I loved it. When we
Chelsea?
started this project, I think I went through like probably a half dozen ideas. Like we had like a running sheet of like it's kind of like you call dibs on something so no one else like really steps on your toes. And I feel like I changed my mind like a ton of times. Like I was like, let's do Tamagotchis. No, let's do the Macarena. No, like I changed my mind 1,000 times. And then again, spoiler for my story, maybe Elton can put a spoiler sound, but I like decided to like play around with the character of Carmen Sandiego. That was a show that I watched like after school a lot because my grandparents didn't have a lot of channels either, and that's where I went after school in the 90s. And then I had like recently wrote a drabble, which for people listening don't know is exactly 100 word story about the HATMAN, which is like a sleep paralysis phenomenon, and like a bunch of people around the world see this same character. And I was like, okay, well, Carmen Sandiego has a hat, and like let's see how we can make those go together. So that was that's where I ended up. So I like tapped into, I was like, let's think of everything 90s, and that's kind of how I approached my idea. My ideas. Yeah.
It's like all of the things and see what happens. And for yours, I guess this is a natural progression into the next one. So I guess we could just start with you again, Chelsea. So did you have an underlying theme or message you were trying to portray? I know you mentioned that it was about the sleep paralysis
so
and
like
HATMAN.
again, spoilers, but as you read the story, like this kid is haunted by this figure that she sees at night. And it seems like this is a really what's the word, like malignant presence, and the kid ends up hiring a medium, and the medium contacts this, and there's a lot of cool horror in the middle. And I kind of had like a moment of, all right, is the spirit bad or good? And I remember like I took a few days to decide on it, and then I decided I wanted it to be good. And so really that spirit was like the HATMAN was trying to protect her. And so I think like the theme I wanted to come through was this kid experienced some trauma, and she confronts that. And for some people, forgetting something is the best way to move on. And that is an approach presented in the story. But for other people, like confronting it and processing it is a better way for them to move on. And so that was like the theme I wanted to come through.
Yeah, I will say, when I read your story, I believe it was an earlier draft, we were chatting about it, and I think the feedback that I gave then was just how vividly you captured the sleep paralysis, because I'd never actually encountered that in lit. Like, I'd never read it. I do suffer from that. I don't see a HATMAN or anything, but I do have sleep paralysis, and it was just so on point with the way that it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say
I like it was a really cool
perfect.
theme to like explore in the second person perspective too, because like it could get pretty visceral, or I tried anyway.
No. How about you, Edith? Did you have any themes or underlying messages that you were trying to portray besides trying to stoke your inner child?
Yeah, I was trying to feel cool. I think the story really for me was like about disclosure of trauma, or like how people express their trauma. And like the character Nona like doesn't really have the tools like as a 15-year-old to like really talk about like what's happened to her. So she's like changed her persona, and she is writing, this music, and she's like trying to like talk about what has happened to her, but she's not really able to communicate it. So I wanted to give her like that moment of catharsis, like in the climax of the story, where she is like able to say what has happened to her. I think like the Me Too movement has made people a lot more comfortable about disclosing trauma. But I think a lot of people are also still not comfortable about it for lots of valid reasons. So, we hide it in art, or hiding pain in art and writing and in music, and I wanted to explore that through this character.
I think you were really successful in it. It all reads, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. It does come through, like, so the way that, sorry, I lost my words. Tell me.
Okay, just read your mind. Sure.
Sorry, I do this sometimes.
I think like
Chelsea,
it
find
was
the words,
really
find
like when I was reading your story, you take this like journey with the character, where at first like it was kind of like you were saying, like Nona's cool, like you want to be Nona, she's in a band, like she's wearing fishnets, she's really cool. And then like you start, as the reader, start to kind of connect the dots, and like I just like wanted to give her a hug, because you could see how she was projecting things that were happening to her. But yeah, I think you did it like really, really wonderfully. Like the little hints in the reveal, I thought just like really hit me right in the heart, and I love your story. Are those the words you were looking for, Brett?
I needed to say thank you because full disclosure, I haven't mentioned it before, but I have this like weird fibromyalgia thing where like suddenly in mid-sentence my words will just disappear. I'm like, oh crap, I'm frozen. I can't grasp them. So that just happened.
I was gonna ask Edith. I liked her story a lot as well. So I was gonna ask, did it have any 90s movies influence it? I think there's that one.
It's funny you say that. Actually, I thought it was Empire Records when you guys were talking about the anthology. So I like sat down and watched it and it's like super nostalgic. It's not a super great movie. Like it's kind of like weirdly but I just wanted to capture like that feeling of like, oh, we work in a record store and it's so cool, we can do whatever we want. Like I wanted to capture that feeling like for Nona in the
There's
first,
another
you know,
90s
half of
movie, I
it.
think, where the metal band goes and hijacks the radio station. I try to do a similar thing, so I don't know. Didn't know
Oh
if that
no.
was like,
What movie is it?
I think it's called Airheads because they're trying to get on the air.
I was just thinking of Coneheads, and I was like, what?
Yes, Chelsea, off to Google.
That's not what I remember.
That didn't happen in
being
Coneheads.
about.
I don't know who's in Airheads. Some classic 90s people, but
Brendan Fraser. I just
yeah, Brendan
Googled it.
Fraser.
And Steve Buscemi and Adam Sandler and Chris Farley. Wow, this is a stacked
Oh
movie
wow.
that none of us have ever seen except for
Yeah.
CB.
Amazing.
I've never seen it. I just know like the premise and yeah. And then was it also touching on Clear Channel? Wasn't that part of the slight spoiler? The demons or people were representing Clear Channel?
Yes. Yeah, like I always thought that was really cool when I would read about things like Weird Al getting his start because Dr. Demento like decided to play him on his radio station. And I feel like everything is like so regimented right now, and you know, it's all the same artists and the same songs, and I have like nostalgia for that time where it was like, you know, if some DJ liked your music, like you could get it played on the radio.
And I
thought
think
that
you're
was,
like the
you know,
only
really cool.
person who really wrote like a radio story too. And that is like so quintessential of that era. Like now I couldn't even tell you it's on the radio. Like I just listen to
really
Spotify and
is.
it's a totally different experience.
Yeah, and that I will say that yours hit the 90s itch very, very sufficiently for me. It felt right, like because the hanging out at Sam Goody, like waiting for your parents, because you know, parents back in the day, they would just kind of leave you and wander around doing their own thing. I mean, it was just all, yeah, it fit well. How about you, CB? Did you have any underlying messages that you were trying to send out?
Yeah, I mean, at first kind of blush, this was more of a secondary theme, but it's more prominent. It's like, or it might be the takeaway that a lot of readers might get is phones are bad or cell phones are bad, but I never would subscribe to anything that simple of a message because the character actually uses the phone to push against the anonymous sender who sent him this mysterious package, which turns out to be a cell phone. He's communicating to him through the cell phone. He's trying to get him to do a certain thing, and he's using the cell phone to kind of go against the intended goal. So that's kind of, you know, kind of the message that just kind of I don't know that phones are not good or bad, but they just kind of are, and to kind of look at what we have available to us now versus then. And then the other part of it was just first loves or high school romances and trying to examine those and how important they can seem at the time.
So you ended up taking kind of an interesting approach where you took modern technology and threw it back in time to show the 90s characters interacting with that. In a lot of spaces, they kind of do the opposite, where, you know, like the modern characters interacting with the stuff from the past. What was your mindset in making that choice to take the 90s story and infuse the modern technology into it?
Arthur C. Clarke quote that's any technology is indistinguishable from magic. That quote stuck with me when I was thinking about sending a cell phone back into time, because I mean, these things are pretty wild how much information we have in our hands, in our pockets at all times. That, I mean, all this knowledge that you can access with, you know, a few clicks or swipes. And that's what I was trying. The story kind of, evolved, and it was going to be like what kind of trouble he could get in with the cell phone back then, but then it was more about who sent it back and what their goal was.
It had like a really cool like trying to fight fate aspect of it too.
Yeah.
Which is really, I like that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. And I do have to give you some credit, because the novelty of the 90s can't be understated, and also can't be understated is these insane memes that you've been creating to promote this anthology. I see them on Facebook. Chelsea shows them to me. These movies, like,
wait, like we need to explain these to the
you
listeners who have not seen them. Like, we're talking
through?
like CB's photoshopping the cover onto the door with Rose and Titanic. Like, there are videos of the book like superimposed in Jurassic Park and in Pulp Fiction. Like, they're so funny. And like a Nirvana cover. Anyway, yeah, you need to tell us.
I forgot about the Nirvana. Yeah. Yeah, that was Matt came up with the idea, and it's not even, I'm not skilled at Photoshop at all. It's just like MS Paint. So whatever I can do with that. But the videos is all, that's all child labor. My daughter's got a tablet and is pretty proficient with it. And she made a little short movie that's pretty cute a while back. And she was making other little comedic videos, and I was like, hey, can you do this and this? And I just described what I wanted, and it would have taken me hours, and she cranked it out in like 30 minutes just on her iPad.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice for other anthology publishers or editors of how to get attention on social media?
Well, like, I feel like Twitter, I've really struggled with, I hate the word engagement, but I mean, that's what it is. Like, knowing, that people are looking at your stuff or interacting with it. Like, it's gone down in the past few months. Of course, I guess the takeover of Elon, but or however they've changed things on the algorithm, but like, it's hard to get a foothold. And even these, I feel like months ago, these would have got a lot more traffic than they would have. But TikTok, I don't know, it's still pretty good. Just trying to, I don't know, figure out what the kids are doing and
figure out go ahead.
Yeah.
The main takeaway is
figure out what the kids are doing, and then put your kid to work on getting it done.
So Edith, yours, we've already touched lightly on it, but it does have kind of a huge twist in the end. Did you know that that's the direction you were going when you started it, or was that twist as much of a surprise for you?
I think I knew I was going in that direction. Especially like with her being like a schoolgirl, like that fit in with that sort of grooming and, spoiler alert, like, sexual abuse trauma. Sometimes I'm surprised that people, like, some readers picked up on it, like that it was coming. Like, I remember reading like the Google Doc comments, and people were like, oh no. And because I feel like sometimes I'm too honest about my twists. Like, I put too much out there really when I should be holding back more. But no, I think I kind of always knew that Nona was really like wounded inside, that she was carrying this huge burden, and that's what made her, so that she gets so into this character that she plays. So yeah, no, I would say that I started the story with that intent.
It was definitely well handled. That subject matter can be tricky to navigate, but you created a character that was easy to care for and ended it well. I know it's hard. I don't want to spoil too much. So
I think like you hinted like the perfect
Oh.
amount, like because when you looked back, everything added up, but like it wasn't in your face. I like just adore that story. I could rave about it all day.
Oh, thanks.
that I'm actually surprised to hear that the people picked up on it really easily because I did not. So I guess I'm just not that great at the foreshadowing.
Yeah, Matt did. Like I remember seeing his comment where he was like, "Oh no," and like I think he like picked up on it. But yeah, so I don't know. I never pick up on things in stories or like twists. I'm always like, "Oh my god!" Like I had no idea. So you know,
That's me. I'm reading it, I'm enjoying the whole ride, and then all of a sudden something changes, and I'm like, "Whoa!"
Thank you.
But it's a craft too, because like if it's something changes and like there are no hints, like no one enjoys that. But like
Mm.
when you get that feeling of like, yeah, that all adds up. Like that's the magic.
Yeah, I remember some writer friend of mine told me like the reader actually enjoys when they can figure it out. Like it's not super obvious, but like, aha, like I know where this is going. I don't know. I tell myself that to make myself feel better when people figure out.
Well, you duped me. You fooled me in it. So it's not like super impressive because I've had to fiddle with Discord twice. Like when I started this call, I had it backwards. So am I like the most
Stop
insanely
selling
delusional?
yourself short. You're a great reader, and
Exactly.
Edith is super smart, and
It's super pretty and super funny. I know we covered this last episode. So Chelsea,
Mhm.
specifically some, backstory on that. I gave you this question and I was like, don't say this before.
And then I did it.
And then you did it. So
sorry.
you drew inspiration from the sleep paralysis demon. How did you decide to turn that character? Like no matter how much I think about it, I can't connect the dots between sleep paralysis demon and Carmen Sandiego. So how did you come up with the character in that way?
So I did like a intense research dive into Carmen Sandiego's character, and I wish that she wasn't trademarked or whatever, because I would have just thrown her in there. And honestly, I feel like it would be really good canon, so they should add it. So her name isn't actually that in the story. It's like it's something that hints at it, like trying to be very obvious. Anyway, there's this whole backstory of Carmen Sandiego, and like her parents died, and she ended up in this like school for girls and all this other stuff. And I was like, this is perfect fodder. This is perfect for horror. I'm gonna totally add this in. So there is this like interesting character canon of this person who experiences like this childhood trauma, and that seemed to me like a natural fit with the story I was going for. So at first it was just like a goofy tie-in with like the hat. I'm like, oh, a HATMAN, Carmen Sandiego's hat. I'll do this like reveal that it's not this malignant male character. It's like this protective female presence. But yeah, I don't know. Part of it was like shoehorning, because I was like, how do I make this 90s? And like, here's a goofy character. And then it actually, like, the more I dug in, I like kind of tried to weave it. So it actually made a lot more.
I mean,
sense, if that makes sense.
You did. I don't know how
question?
you answered it, but I understand now. So I can't dig through and find the answer, but
Awesome.
I see the connection now, and it's actually really neat. I didn't realize that Carmen Sandiego had such intense backstory. I thought she was just like a spy that
I know.
lived in a TV show. Like it's.
Yeah, I probably just educated more people than ever will have Googled that on their own. So you're welcome.
I do have to thank you all for coming on here and sharing this. They were incredible stories. Every one of them is fantastic. They're all nostalgic. They tug at that 90s bone that everybody's dying to itch because of the times we're in now, and we're all getting older and all of those negative things. So yeah.
Our backs hurt and I take more
That's
ibuprofen than
what
is
I call
normal.
what you call horror.
All that.
I wasn't reading.
That's what I
so
call horror.
For CB and Edith, where can we find you? Do you have social media links that we can link? Do you have a website?
Yeah, I have a Twitter at Writers, WRITERS Jones, and a website, www.therulesoftheroad.net, which is title of my debut novel, The Rules of the Road.
And Edith?
I have a Twitter, and that's about it. At Edith Lockwood 13. It's mostly 90s anthology memes right now.
I appreciate you all so much.
And I have a couple stories published in the Dread Machine, so you can find those there.
Awesome.
Chelsea, did you want to share your socials?
I think I already did in the other thing, so I can
I
let it go. I've read some of your pieces in the Dread Machine, Edith, and I love them just as much as I love Nona. I haven't gotten a chance to read Rules of the Road yet, but it's on my shelf, CB. But do you have any other? You have another thing coming out.
That
has to do with
just some short stories coming out. Well, this one and then a couple in an anthology. Oh yeah, the Bug anthology. Yeah, I sold a story. It's an anthology called This World Belongs to Us. It's an anthology about bug themed horror, and mine is called In This House, Spiders Are Our Friends. So
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to read that one.
Yeah. But I will say you really need to check out anybody that's listening, The Rules of the Road. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
I think I messaged you like as soon as I read. I'm like, what are you doing here?
I appreciate it. Yeah,
it was fantastic. There's just one scene that just sticks with me. I can't say it because spoilers, but it's about a hotel, and I adore that scene so much. So everybody check out Edith's work in the Dread Machine and CB's in the upcoming This World Belongs to Us, right? Did I say that one?
Yes.
And Rules of the Road.
This is the Cutthroat Queens podcast, and I am Elton Skelter. Thank you very much for joining us today. We've had guests CB Jones and Edith Lockwood, two incredible authors, so please look up their work. All of the details about that will be in our attached document. We'll be back next month for a very, very special double edition. And if you want to talk to us, tell us how we're doing, or tell us what you like or don't like about the podcast, you can reach us through socials. We've got Twitter at Cutthroat Horror, or our email address is cutthroatqueenspodcast@gmail.com. This has been the Cutthroat Queens podcast, sponsored by the ghosts of both Shirley and Michael Jackson, Pop Rocks, and KY Jelly, yours and mine. I'm Elton Skelter, we are the Cutthroat Queens, and you are welcome.
This time you're never gonna get it. So when you lay me down to rest, dress me up all in my Sunday best. You know it is true.